I'll switch over to screen sharing. So I planned a panel, but I'm also flying by the seat of my pants, so it should be good. So welcome everyone. My name is Wheatart or Kara. I am a huge Animorphs enthusiast, and I have been in the transformation community. I want to say like 2 years now. I didn't really realize how big of a community there was. I've just been drawing in the background. So now I'm actually here. Oh, thanks, Passetto. I'm going to start with a section from an Animorphs book. Hopefully that'll make explain a little bit about this panel. And this, the fun thing is actually right on inside of the cover. So I'm going to read here. I felt my jaw stretching and stretching outward. The bones made a slight grinding sound as my small, weak human mouth and teeth became the powerful, crushing jaw of the wolf. My human mouth and teeth could barely cut through a tough steak. The wolf jaw and teeth could do a whole lot more. The rest of the morph continued. My knees reversed direction. My legs grew smaller, rough pads replaced my feet. So I adore Animorphs. I do not like the knees reversing direction. Um, and actually, I believe it was Fourth Wall Studios. I'm going to see if I can share my screen. They actually sent several other examples from the from Animorphs. So I'm just going to pull those up on the side. Thank you to Fourth Wall for having these. Okay, let's start. We'll see how my computer handles this too. It's a lot of energy on the computer. Legs began to grow from the chest of Axe human morph. His own front legs small at first, but growing rapidly. He was slowing down as his human legs began to change. The knees were reversing direction. And then her eyes went from brown-black to golden-brown. All over her body, fur replaced the bright pinks and greens of her leotard. A tail suddenly shot out from behind. I could hear the grinding of her bones as they rearranged. Her upper arms shortened, her lower arms grew longer. Fingers shriveled and disappeared, leaving behind only stubby black nails. There was a sickening crunch as her knees changed direction. So, with all that said, I want to also give Animorphs some credit. They were one of the first series, I think, that really explored animal science. Edutainment is a word I use for it, but they my brain just blanked as I wanted to say something. They were a series that each book kind of introduced you to a different animal, a different morph. You got to experience the different instincts of the animal. And I always really enjoyed the shape-shifting sequences, but I think it was probably a product of the time that it was written. There wasn't a lot of research or understanding the fact that what they were assuming was knees is actually the heel, especially on the back leg of an animal. And I have also noticed, especially in a lot of transformation artwork, there is a tendency to draw less anatomically correct work. Now, there is a spectrum. I'm going to put these in the chat because I think streaming and doing my video at the same time might be too much, but I will stream a little bit later. I have some examples here of, and these are actually good examples, but very loose anatomy in transformation. And then I will show more rigid or more accurate anatomy and transformation. So these first two, if they upload, there we go. These first two I uploaded are actually pieces of art from Fox. And you notice that, again, this is not a bad example. There are many bad examples out there, but I really want to focus on good examples. So this first one here, you notice that like it is a very cartoony style, and they're not really focused heavily on how the anatomy works, but you can tell they understand the anatomy because they still use it throughout their piece. And then for another example, I'm going to share some pieces from Lima Bean, and both of these are different horse sequences so that you can kind of get a good comparison between Fauve, between Lima Bean, and kind of that spectrum. And horses are also the one of the ones that I see done wrong the most. Um, so you have lima beans here, and this is a more anatomically focused one. This is one where they're really focused on, hey, what are the specific bones in the hand? What are the specific bones that change between a human and a horse? Um, and one thing I want to say with this is once you've learned the rules, once you've understood anatomy, you then have the freedom to kind of break the rules as you see fit. I personally don't like doing the like single finger that turns into a giant hoof. That's not my favorite, but there's people that enjoy it and there's people that don't. So you find a balance and don't ever, if somebody understands the anatomy and they're still choosing to do something a different way, um, learning to kind of figure out what your preferences are and don't go in somebody's comments saying, well, actually, this is how it's supposed to be done, because usually most people are making a choice. Um, with that being said, there are a lot of people who I don't think understand the anatomy, and so you often see a lot more errors that pop up in their artwork. And it makes it harder for them to. Uh, I'm like scanning the chat as I'm talking, and it's not helping me focus on what I'm saying. Um, but yeah, so learning the anatomy helps you choose where you want to break the rules instead of having your own shortfalls in your artwork breaking the rules without your awareness. So the reason I wanted to do this panel is I wanted to give people an opportunity to talk about maybe some of the things they're struggling with, and see if there's any way I can help. At the end of the panel, I'm also going to share a bunch of links to different pose reference sites for the human side of it. There's also some really cool sites. There's two of them where you can actually take a skull, either of a human or of an animal, and you can adjust this skull and change directions, and then it'll pull up photo references of the animal or person you're looking for so that you can actually see what it looks like from that side. Um, and the best thing I can recommend, especially if you want to learn anatomy, is reference, reference, reference. Look up photos of the animal that you want to do. Look at the specific body parts that you're trying to depict and find a way to practice drawing that. Oh, yeah. Yoshio posted one of the sites that I'm going to be linking at the end. Super helpful. They're really cool because they have a little 3D model and you can turn the skull in any direction you want, and then it'll have photo references from that angle. So I highly recommend it. Um, I think that's most of the main stuff I wanted to say to start. What I'd like to do now is I'm going to turn off my video. I'm going to open my screenshot and go into Photoshop. And is there anything that the group, the chat, has specific struggles with? And I'd like to see if I can help you guys figure out some of the anatomy within transformation. So I'm just going to switch over. We will turn off. Oh, okay. Is it loading? Sorry, bear with my computer. It's 10 years old. Okay, we got the video off. I'm pulling open my screen share. And I'm gonna lower the frame rate just a little bit, and hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier. And I'm gonna open the chat in the side. Okay, so I've got fish are difficult, how to do a muzzle, and seals. Is there one you guys would like to? Okay, let's do the seal first. So with the seal, because I actually just did a seal recently, and I'm gonna have it up sketching. Feel free to look up photo references if you want, but we'll start with seals. And you're right, they are a little bit harder because they're super simple, um, and they're mostly blubber. Okay, and we'll pull this up. Okay, so the thing I found with seals, yeah, because you're right, it's mostly big blubbery, and they'll have their little skeleton inside the blubber. One of the cool things I found out while I was drawing the seal sequence that I did recently is they still have little claws on their flippers. So it's like a hand that's been stretched out like this. Um, and that's maybe how you can start it is you have the fingers kind of stretching and fusing together. Um, but like the shape itself is fairly simple, but it is like all their fingers fused together, and then they've got little claws on the end. And that's how they have their front flippers. And then for the back flippers, the thing I noticed with those, so you have a little nubby tail, and the back flippers are again also very loose forms. But if you look at like a human foot in the same position, you have the toes, and I'll try and read your guys' comments. I might miss some stuff too. So yeah, so you have the toes, and then the seal foot, it is again like super long toes. If you look at photo references, and so but it's like their toes kind of fuse together, and then they got their little nubby tail in the middle, and then they've got their head. Oops. And then some seals don't have ears; they'll just have the little earholes. Other seals will actually have ears. It just depends on the type of seal. Did that help at all with your question about the seals? Not really. Um, oh, that's true. Yeah, but yeah, the fins are the feet. Cecilia said it well here. Um, so where a human might have their knees and their pelvis inside here, they're mostly all together. And I could definitely be wrong on this. I did the research a little while ago. Yeah, people have it really well in the comments. Oh yes, perfect. Um, skeleton references are your friend. I was definitely just going very loosely on the skeletons. So, but yeah, if you're ever struggling with where something connects, like if you have a foot and then you're trying to get it into a seal foot, looking up skeletons, looking up references, looking up muscle structures, that will all help you draw the anatomy a little bit better. So we'll erase this for now. And then I saw a couple other ones. There was I saw a question about fish, and then I saw a question, I think I've lost it. Not sure about the other ones. So what were some of the questions about fish? What was the struggle there? Yeah. So with fish, with bugs, and with that sort of thing, the anatomy is quite different. Sometimes, and David Mattingly actually said this, is finding those points of reference can really help you figure out how you want to do. So for fish, what I've found um, is so I'll have a human head, and then I will have a fish head. Again, very loose drawings. Um, but like one of the points of reference I usually do is I will start to remove the neck because fish don't really have necks in the same way that people do. I realized that fish was in a very weird angle. And so one of the ways that I will start between a fish and a human is when I am going between, I'll actually use the jaw as kind of like a starting of the gills. And I will just slowly fade out the nose, and I will widen the neck until it connects with the shoulders. Uh, and fish have really large mouths too, and they don't really have chins. So yeah, finding a point of reference. So like a chin here, no real chin here, but you can go from the eyes, which are a good reference point. And each fish, again, this is where I really have to emphasize photo reference because everything is so different. Because you'll have like a lionfish, which has these like bulbous eyes that pop out, and a little nubbin, and then they have their body. Or you'll have like a viper fish, two ones that I did recently, that has the eyes very close in. They don't have a huge upper part. So looking up photo references as you're doing the thing can help. Okay, and then let's see. Want to get a mantis transformation. I actually had somebody asking me about. Uh, I've asked this before. Okay, so I'm gonna do the mantis one and then remind me about the beak one because I want to follow up with that one afterwards. Okay, I'm actually going to need to pull up some mantis photos, so give me just a second. We'll see how my computer handles. Oh, okay. I'm not going to do that on my computer because that's a lot of work for my poor computer. I am going to pull up a praying mantis on my phone. So I am pulling up some references in the background, just so you know, and then I can start drawing. Praying mantis. There we go. Images. Okay. So the cool thing about a mantis is they got this super triangle head, and they've got these big eyes. Oh, never mind. And then they have a little dot that actually moves around. Bugs are not one that I do very commonly, usually because I don't know what I'm doing with them, but I definitely try. Uh, and then they've got their little mandible thingies. So if I was just to take, let's start with a mantis head like that. And if I wanted to get a human to a mantis, I can look at, again, some points of reference. So one of the first things that's really noticeable is the eyes. So to start with, we can start with the eyes. Just start widening the eyes and just finding that point A to point B. How are you getting between those two? Just for fun, because the nose is like the antenna and the nose do similar features. I'm going to start creeping the nose up to the top of the head to get my mantis look. And I'm not really worrying about scale or anything right now. The first thing I want to worry about is just getting the actual anatomy to change. The fun thing with humans, they have a jaw already, so you could use that um, to make your pointy triangle head, or you can have their mouth sliding down as the pinchers come out and the eyes start bugging out. I'm really hoping sometime I want to do an illustration of Jake uh, doing the dragonfly morph, because one of the first things that happens is his eyes bug right out. So I've crept the nose up there, and then so that's one way. And again, with transformation, a lot of it is made up, so you can kind of come up with your ideas. But understanding the anatomy, like the main reason I know how to draw a person is because I spent a year drawing people from photos. I did a single drawing every single day. And so I got a really good grasp just by looking at different photos of like how the human being is shaped. Doing muscle studies, doing skeleton studies. With bugs, a lot of it is looking up photos, whether it's like with the skin peeled off or with the actual bug, and continuing to draw that animal, because the more frequently you draw something, the better you'll get at it. Okay, so we got the mantis. Let's try. We were curious about beaks. I've actually done a couple different styles of beaks, and a lot of it is your preference. The beak is keratin, just like our fingers and nails, or pardon me, just like our hair and fingernails. um, so you have a person, and just for ease, we're going to have a parrot beak. And I am doing most of this from memory. If I'm way off, just tell me and I can look up some reference, but I'm just doing a loose one. So, one of the big things to remember with birds is their nostrils are attached to the beak. So, you have a couple options. when you're doing beaks. You can go for the lips and nose kind of fusing together. Um, and I actually don't mind this one. I find it rather fun. And that way you've already got the nostrils in place. You can, especially if they have like a fun nose to work with, you can actually like make their nose even more hooked to emphasize on that. Another option you can do, and I've tried this a couple times. I have mixed feelings about it. It can work, and again, it's understanding. I was actually just green. Yeah, green. I was going to do the other one. The other option I had is to do the teeth, and then you have the nose up here. The fun thing with this one is you can kind of get the teeth into a shape. Um, like a beak and having the teeth kind of instead of like growing into fangs, they're growing into a beak. And then you just kind of open the mouth a little bit wider. The teeth come into more of a beak, and then the nose. Oops. The nose kind of fades into because parrots and a lot of birds will have this little bridge here between the beak. So that's another way you can do it. Um, see if I can see what people are saying. Is there any other questions about the beak, or should I move on to something else? I did see something about a naga. I'll have to go take a look at it. I'm trying to think if there's any other ways to do a beak. Usually I'm just either merging the hooves. uh, I mean, with hooves, that's kind of why I shared fuzz and lima beans because you have the finger stretching into the hoof, which is not one that I like to do personally. I just don't like the look of it, but it does get because we think of when you have a horse, um, we think of as the knee here, actually their wrist, and their elbow. This is actually their elbow back here. This is their wrist, and then this is kind of where we have finger bones is what they have, whereas they have like their actual knee back here, and then they have their heel bone. Bad horse, forgive me. Okay, we'll erase that. Okay. And yeah, third floor chord mentioned. I draw with teeth falling out and the flesh of the gums. I'm personally not one that does like any like removal of like hair, nails, or teeth. Again, that's another way that you can do it. And finding what you prefer is um, definitely a way to do it. Sarah Fell mentions is having the lips and face stretching. Yeah, that's one of the options that I usually like to do. Okay, and I'm gonna scroll up, so I'm just gonna see because somebody had a big question, and I'm gonna see if I can answer it. Okay. For Naga TF, taken partially depending on the species, heat vision, hearing, completely change vibration. Is there anything else that bears consideration? As far as snakes go, um, one of the things like snake skeleton is usually have the mouth, and then you actually something kind of cool. This might their lower jaw is not one piece like a human lower jaw is one piece, and you have teeth right there, and you have snake. They actually have two pieces, and this is what enables them widen their mouth so that they can swallow their prey. If you ever get a chance to look at a snake, super, really neat. So their top jaw, and they're very delicate. Like they look so so fragile. But like as far as the rest of their body, a snake is almost like they have their ribs, and then they have a spine, and then they have the organs inside. Like they are a very, very, very simple skeleton. So when you're doing a snake, I've seen where people they'll have the legs. They'll have like your basic legs, and then they'll like grow a tail, and then the legs will, as the tail is growing, like the legs kind of merge in, which is one way of doing it. One of the ways I've done it, um, oh, and I did. Oh, fourth wall. Thanks for sharing that. That is a fantastic reference. I did see the question on anatomy of fictional creatures. I'll get to that once I'm done with the snakes. Because one of the ways also done the snakes is I still grow the tail, but I just have the feet get smaller and smaller and smaller until they just disappear. I just shrink them um, into the limbs. I have also seen where people just kind of twine the legs together into a snake, which is less anatomically accurate, but you can definitely do it. Snakes do actually have a tail. They have their body, and then they actually have a tail at the end. Um, but again, learning how to do the different ways, learning what for definitely helps. And then so I saw the question for the fictional creatures. My best answer, yeah, twisting the legs is creative and whimsical. Something else. So, my best answer for fictional creatures is find what they're inspired by, because almost all fictional creatures have a basis in some real animal. So, like, easiest example is you have a griffin, which is an eagle and a lion spliced together. So you can look up the hind legs of a lion, you can look up the body of an eagle, and a lot of it is just kind of learning how to splice those. Um, Dragons, your best bet is looking at different reptiles. It's also Looking at I'm trying to think of some other ones. Looking at certain dinosaurs, looking at crocodiles, you can actually and you can come up with some really cool creative ideas for different dragons based on what you're referencing. So like a crocodilian dragon might have like a really long snout, and then one of the fun things that reptiles will throat sac or whatever. Um, but where you can differ from a crocodile is maybe that he's got a snaky neck. Or you can the other one to look up too for dragons is birds, because you can have a dragon, maybe they've got like a nice beak, and maybe they have some raptor eyes, and they have like some feathered crests that like a bird might have. So a lot of fantasy is finding a way, looking at real life animals and taking little things from each animal. Oh, there's a cute example they shared, Digital Potato shared of a more bird-looking dragon. Um, okay. Any other questions about I could look into fantasy animals, I could look into specific, uh, other animals. Shoulders and neck shift around the dog so that the, TFE can actually look. Okay, so this is kind of cool. I'm gonna use this to talk dogs, cats, and bears. Um, Let me see if I can just quickly upload. I've got a human skeleton and I've got a cat skeleton. Share. So something kind of cool. Um, on the human skeleton, our shoulders are very and the shoulders of cats and dogs and bears are not out from under the neck. They're actually behind the neck. So that's really bad drawings. One of the things I really want them to be facing, really want to go um, from like a human has again shoulders, and then you can go. We'll just do a cat. The reason I brought up bears too is because if you look at David Mattingly, the Animorphs bear, she actually has human shoulders, which is inaccurate and it keeps bugging me. So one of the things you can do when you're going between the two is you start creeping the neck behind the spine. You start pushing the shoulders forward and then like the shoulder blades kind of into the back, and you can kind of shorten the elbows. I keep running out of room on my until you've got the head actually sitting in front of the spine, and then you have those nice shoulder blades, and then you have their elbow out back here. So that's kind of how you can move between human shoulders, again, which stick out to the side from the neck, to the shoulders that are more um, behind. And if you there's a cool illustration I've seen, a human child sitting on the ground. They'll have their shoulders out here, whereas if you have a bear sitting on the ground, they don't actually have shoulders. You can see this, they did it really well in Zootopia, is they actually kept their shoulders more animal, and so they can easily go from standing upright to all fours, and that was something that their concept artists spent time studying. I did see one mention bears, in fact, are plantigrades. So bears are one of the closest to people when it comes to body posture, except for the shoulders, because humans are also plantigrade. A bear, and they have a little bit of a bigger neck than ours. They have their little knees just like we do, and then they have their whole foot on the ground just like we do. Okay, and we only got a couple minutes left. Is there any other questions that I can help answer? And thank you everyone for sharing the different references. Once we're done, I'm going to share a bunch of links in the chat to different anatomy websites. Did I see that? No, give me a sec. Seal feet are kind of sideways. I didn't actually know that. So that is a very cool fact to learn. Thank you for sharing that. I greatly appreciate it. There is definitely, I do not know all the anatomy. So anytime I get to learn a new animal fact, I'm always super excited. But yeah, so if there's any final questions, and if anybody wants to speak the question instead of typing, I think I need to do that. And I'm trying to think of any. The Durant, I got 15, yeah, I got about 15 minutes left. If you have a question about an, let me know and I will try and answer it within the time we got left. Otherwise, I can wrap up. I do see several people. Oh, very cool. Thanks for sharing you. I love learning animal. Half the door reading Animorphs growing up was learning all. Some of them definitely debunked, got changed as better, but sorry, uh, being able to learn those different, I think, is passionate with Animorphs. Actually, what I might do, if I can up real quick, I actually, just as a treat, sneak preview. I have been. How would you go with a reptilian? Um, I think it's personal preference with the reptilian. I usually just where the tailbone is on a human, but you can move the legs aside. It just. But I'm just gonna find real quick. I wanted to share with you guys a couple. I have been very, very, very one of my friends did a script, and I have been very slowly storyboarding the whole thing. So I'm gonna see if I link. Let me know if this goes through, and I will share storyboards. Um, yes, I think it worked. Okay, so these are a couple scenes that I'm doing specific transformations. I've been using a program called Storyboard, and it's free, and it's been able to let me just put on the script and slowly um, do a series. I don't know how long it's going to be, but when I'm finished, I'm planning to have the whole sequence available online so that people can, if they want to, they can actually take my works and they animate it, they can voice it over. I want this to be like a big Animorphs fan project. Um, so that's something I've been working on whenever I'm not in commission. Aside from that, I guess thank you everyone. We're gonna wrap up a little bit early. I think that's all I can say. But thank you everyone for coming. I'm questions. I'm glad we got to look at a bunch of different anatomy, and I hope you all have a chance to practice reference really cool animal facts. It's like half the you get all the and once I have left the stage, I'll share the I will get those ready. Actually, I guess I can. These are several links collected. A lot of them are for drawing the human. Really good animal. That shares. Oh, that shared as an image. I did not mean to do. But yes, hope y'all enjoyed, and take care. I'm going to leave the stage now. Thanks. Bye.